Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles reign victorious in Super Bowl 59 in a dominant fashion over the Kansas City Chiefs. This defensive line looked unbelievable, and more importantly, Jalen Hurts, the Super Bowl MVP, proved everybody wrong. A lot of people in the media, a lot of the talking heads are going to owe Jalen Hurts an apology. Everybody was talking about how he couldn't get it done when it mattered the most, how Jalen Hurts wasn't an effective passer, and this entire offense relied on Saquon Barkley. But Jalen Hurts proved everybody wrong, looked amazing in the Super Bowl, and the Philadelphia Eagles have now stopped not only this three-peat, but have proved that they are going to be around for a long time and are going to be a very solid football team. And Jalen Hurts, originally when he got his massive contract extension, said money is nice, but championships are better. And boy, he was not lying. This Philadelphia team was so happy to finally get this revenge over the Kansas City Chiefs, losing by 3 points only 2 years ago. They were so close. Jalen Hurts had 4 touchdowns in that game. And that's one of the reasons why I was so shocked that everybody was criticizing him. Even though he had a lot of turnovers last year, this Philadelphia team kind of went away from what made them so great, which was running the football. Then they get this electric back that is Saquon Barkley, who wins the Offensive Player of the Year award, rushes for 2,000 yards, only the 9th player in NFL history to do so. And I talked to Jalen Hurts about this at the Super Bowl. I was live there from Radio Row this past week, but I asked him, Jalen, you had one of your more efficient seasons of your career when you looked at his stats when he played a full season, but he really credited it to Kellen Moore and the lack of change that there was. There was a lot of change since they were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and now that he was finally able to find his guy, this offense was so effective running the football, and they didn't need Jalen Hurts to be this Superman that he was over the past 2 seasons, and now it's like Saquon Barkley kind of gets neutralized by this Kansas City defense, and Jalen Hurts had to make plays when it mattered the most, and that's absolutely what he did. He absolutely deserves Super Bowl MVP. I have no doubts in my mind, and I just feel so great for him that finally this narrative is going to change. We all know what winning a Super Bowl does for a player and what it does for your legacy, but now he's in this very selective category of active quarterbacks that actually have a Super Bowl win, and there was this negative dialogue towards him. Hey, he's not a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And I think everybody kind of needs to reassess how they look at Jalen Hurts coming into this season. Nobody thought of him as a top 10 quarterback. Everybody was super critical of him because he had so many turnovers last season, and they never were wanting to give him that credit when they had so many wins this season, but it was because of Saquon Barkley is what everybody was saying. But at the end of the day, when he stepped up in the biggest moments, we've got to relook in the mirror and ask ourselves, Jalen Hurts, is he a top 10 quarterback? I absolutely believe so. Had a heck of a performance, but it wouldn't be right to talk about this masterclass of a defensive performance that the Philadelphia Eagles put on. Jalen Hurts said it in the post-game press conference, defense wins championships, and we saw this defensive line getting after Patrick Mahomes all game long. I looked at this game in terms of how physical and how dominant this defensive line was. And it was really reminiscent of the Tampa Bay Chiefs Super Bowl a few years ago, where Mahomes was literally like running for his life the entire time. He was making those running, diving throws where he would be parallel to the ground. And it reminded me so much of that Super Bowl that they had against Tampa Bay a few seasons ago, where Mahomes was not able to trust his timing. The offensive line was giving him no time. And we know how great this Philadelphia defensive line is with Jalen Carter, with Brandon Graham, with Sweat, with Jordan Davis, with all of these guys. They were menaces all night long, and he had no time to throw. This offense never got in a solid rhythm. They never really ran the ball much in the first half, and in my opinion, I thought that that was a massive mistake. They got to a certain point where they were down 3 touchdowns, and Philadelphia could just pin their ears back and rush the quarterback all game long, and they never consistently ran the football, and they had a few decent runs in the second half, but they never really got to that much. And I just look at this defensive line for Philadelphia. They're young. They are mean. They're aggressive. This is going to be a really great defensive line for years to come. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis. You look at these guys, they're going to be around for a while. And even if Brandon Graham ultimately decides to retire, this evolution the defensive line had when he went down, when he tore his tricep earlier in the year, when he went down, this D-line stepped it up even more. And Jalen Carter was a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. He's only one of 3 defensive tackles in this century to record 20-plus pressures in the postseason. It's him, Chris Jones, and Aaron Donald. That is a heck of an accomplishment to be in that type of company with those 2 great defensive tackles. It'll definitely both be in the Hall of Fame, but man, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, these guys were unbelievable this season, and this Philadelphia team, really just a team of destiny, honestly. Picking up Zach Bond, a guy that was thrown to the curb, this really poetic story of him being with the Saints, him crying at night because he thought he wasn't good enough, and then he wins the Super Bowl in New Orleans, and you look at the two rookies in the backside, Cooper DeJean getting that pick six, Quinyon Mitchell having a great postseason run as well, and Darius Slay really helping, taking both of those guys under his wing, and this Philadelphia defense was just tremendous all season long. You heard the narratives about how Vic Fangio couldn't step up when it mattered the most against Mahomes and Andy Reid, the 0-8 stat, all of that, how he'd been coaching for decades, and he wins the Super Bowl. Feel great for him. And I just feel so great for this Philadelphia team, and in specific Nick Sirianni as well, a guy that everybody was criticizing, a guy that was in the same boat as Jalen Hurts. Hey, you're not winning because of what you're doing. You're winning because of everybody around you. Same thing with Jalen Hurts. You're not winning because of what you're doing. You're winning because of Saquon Barkley and this great offensive line and because of A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. And now they win the Super Bowl. You've got to give them credit at a certain point. And just a heck of a season from those two guys, at one point being 2-2. When they were a little banged up, everybody was like, man, is Sirianni on the hot seat? And then he wins the Super Bowl. They win Super Bowl 59. And just a heck of a season overall from this Philadelphia team. And I've talked about this before, but you look at Saquon Barkley and what he's done for the running back market. I feel like there's been this narrative in sports media that, hey, once the running backs get off their rookie contract, there's no point in paying them. And we saw his story, tearing his ACL with the Giants and having to come back, prove that he was still an elite running back. And then New York really didn't think that there would be a huge market for him, so they decided to let him test free agency. Philly said, we'll pick him up. He had a heck of a season, really, really helped the running back position. And you look across the NFC, I don't see one specific team that could really take the challenge of beating Philadelphia with how great this team is, how great they're going to be next year. I know everybody likes to credit the Super Bowl slump. At the end of the day, this Philadelphia team has already proved that they can get back to this point when they lost there 2 years ago. We're in the postseason last year. I have no doubts that this Philadelphia team will be back in this game in the next few years with Jalen Hurts, with Saquon Barkley, with Devontae Smith, with A.J. Brown, with this tremendous young defensive line, with this tremendous young secondary outside of big play Slay. And I'll wrap up this video with how I started it. Everybody needs to apologize to Jalen Hurts. At the end of the day, if you've been criticizing him, if you don't think he's a top 10 quarterback, if you think he's only been winning because of this offensive line, because of Saquon Barkley, and because of his weapons on the perimeter, you need to look at yourself in the mirror and say, man, I was wrong, because Jalen Hurts is absolutely a top 10 quarterback in the league, and he stepped up in the biggest moment in the Super Bowl, Super Bowl 59. Jalen Hurts is now a champion. Congratulations to him and this Philadelphia team. I'm Caden Kubler, and thank you guys for watching.